I first met Eli when I was 7 years old. My parents had just moved us to a decrepit old house on the outskirts of town, a place where the walls whispered secrets and the floorboards groaned under invisible weight. They said the move was temporary, a way to save money after my father lost his job. But to a child, permanence meant nothing. All I knew was that my world had shrunk to this creaking, shadow-filled house. Eli appeared the day I wandered into the attic. I had been chasing a mouse that darted up the stairs, curious and desperate for any kind of excitement in this dull, lifeless home. The attic was dark, the air thick with the smell of mold and rot. And there, sitting cross-legged in the corner, was Eli. He was about my age, pale-skinned and wide-eyed, with a mop of unkempt black hair. His smile was unsettling, too wide, too sharp, but I was lonely. He said, "Hi, I'm Eli. Do you want to play?" Of course, I said yes. At first, Eli was everything a lonely child could want in a friend. He was funny, always coming up with new games to play. Hide and seek in the attic became our favorite, though he always seemed to know exactly where I was hiding. He never cheated, he claimed. He just guessed well. My parents didn't seem to notice Eli. When I mentioned him at dinner one night, my mother brushed it off with a distracted smile. "An imaginary friend, huh? That's normal for kids your age." But Eli wasn't imaginary. He was real, or at least he felt real. His laughter echoed in my ears. His touch was cold against my skin. And then Eli began to change. It started small. He'd suggest games that made me uncomfortable. "Let's play Pretend You're Dead," he said one afternoon. I thought it was a joke, but he lay down on the attic floor, his eyes wide and unblinking, his body stiff. "Your turn," he whispered, after a long silence, his voice low and insistent. I laughed nervously and refused. He didn't smile. "Why don't you ever do what I say, Claire?" His tone was sharper than I'd ever heard it, a blade hidden in velvet. The next day, I found a dead mouse on my pillow. Its neck had been twisted at an unnatural angle, and its tiny mouth hung open in a silent scream. "I found it for you," Eli said, his grin stretching impossibly wide. "Do you like it?" The nightmares began soon after. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding as I tried to shake off the images of Eli's face, distorted, monstrous, looming over me in the dark. He was always there when I woke, sitting at the foot of my bed, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. "You're mine, Claire," he whispered one night, his breath cold against my cheek. "Don't forget that." I stopped telling my parents about Eli. They already thought I was making him up, and the last thing I needed was another lecture about growing up or acting my age. But Eli wasn't imaginary, and he wasn't going away. As I grew older, Eli became more possessive. He hated when I spent time with anyone else. When I made a new friend at school, a shy girl named Anna, Eli was furious. "She's boring," he spat. "You don't need her. You have me." I ignored him, determined to hold on to the tiny sliver of normalcy Anna brought into my life. But Eli wouldn't be ignored. One morning, I found a note in my backpack, written in jagged, childlike handwriting. "Anna is bad for you. Get rid of her." When I refused, Eli retaliated. Anna's cat disappeared, and a week later it was found dead in her backyard. Anna never spoke to me again. High school was worse. Eli's games became darker, his demands more twisted. He'd whisper things to me in the middle of the night, his voice seeping into my dreams like poison. "Push her down the stairs," he said when a girl in my class teased me. "Make her regret it." I didn't listen, at least not at first. But the more he whispered, the harder it became to resist. "One day," I snapped. The girl was laughing at me, her voice shrill and grating, and before I knew it, I had shoved her. She tumbled down the stairs, her screams echoing in my ears. Eli was waiting for me when I got home, his smile triumphant. "See? I told you it would feel good." It didn't. By the time I turned 18, I was desperate to escape Eli. I moved out of my parents' house and into a small apartment in the city. hoping that distance would sever whatever bond tied us together. But Eli followed me. "You can't run from me, Claire," he said, lounging on my couch as if he owned the place. "You'll never be free." I tried everything to get rid of him. Therapy, medication, even exorcisms. Nothing worked. He was always there, a shadow that clung to me no matter how far I ran. And then one night, he showed me his true form. I was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the television, when the air around me grew cold. Eli appeared, his usual boyish grin replaced by something far more sinister. "Do you want to see what I really am?" he asked, his voice dripping with malice. Before I could respond, his body began to shift. His skin peeled away, revealing something grotesque beneath. A mass of writhing shadows and jagged teeth, eyes that burned like fire. "This is me, Claire," he said, his voice echoing in my mind. "This is what you've been playing with all these years." I screamed, but no sound came out. Eli didn't leave after that night. If anything, he became more insistent, more demanding. He wanted me to hurt people, to break them the way he had broken me. "You're mine," he reminded me constantly. "And I'll make you just like me." I fought him with everything I had, but it wasn't enough. He was in my mind, my dreams, my very soul. I couldn't escape him. Until one day, I realized I didn't want to. The first time I killed someone, it was almost an accident. A man had followed me home from the subway, his intentions clear in the leering smile he gave me. Eli whispered in my ear, his voice soft and seductive. "Do it, Claire. He deserves it." I don't remember picking up the knife or plunging it into the man's chest. All I remember is the warmth of his blood on my hands and the way Eli laughed, his voice filled with delight. "You're finally mine," he said, wrapping his arms around me like a lover. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Now I live for Eli. He is my purpose, my everything. Together we play our games, weaving chaos and destruction wherever we go. And when people ask about the girl who disappeared all those years ago, the one who used to laugh and dream, I smile. "She's gone now." Eli took her. And I don't miss her at all.